From Informa Tech Target, I'm Beth Pariseau, and this is IT Ops Query. This podcast distills the signal from the noise about enterprise software development and platform engineering. Each week, we'll talk to expert guests about the latest tech industry news and trends that engineering and IT leaders need to know. Don't forget to subscribe to IT Ops Query for more conversations on AI and the future of the enterprise digital workspace. Hello, and thanks for joining IT Ops Query. We're here doing our inaugural episode on the road at GitHub Universe in San Francisco. And with me is my conference buddy, Katie Norton. We end up out of the same shows. She is the research manager for IDC's DevSecOps and software supply chain security practice. Her research focuses on how security is integrated into the software development lifecycle, how development teams take ownership of security, and how they collaborate with AppSec teams. So thanks for joining me in this adventure, Katie.
Yes, happy to be here.
This week, GitHub had some DevSecOps news with code quality. It's up in public preview. It uses the CodeQL static code analysis engine to detect maintainability and reliability issues in Java, C#, Python, JavaScript, Go, and Ruby. And of course, for the initiated static code analysis is also known as SAST. And that's historically been focused on security and vulnerabilities. So this extends Copilot's automated security checks to include things like maintainability and reliability. What I'm curious about is how that might advance application security, or is it more something for developers, do you think?
Yeah, there's a couple of different angles to it. One is that security is very much a dimension of quality under the larger quality umbrella. AppSec people don't always see it that way, but when you think about code and application, really security is one function of a quality, reliable application. And we see this in practice in organizations I've spoken with, as well as that I've surveyed. We see QA as a primary collaborator in around application security. We often see highly integrated and coordinated processes between the QA teams and the AppSec teams and developers around these two dimensions. So in practice, we're seeing this more and more. And then in the market too, I think is reflecting this shift. We see things in addition to this announcement from GitHub, we've seen other security companies like Aikido Security they launched a code quality product earlier this year. Sonar, who's the known player in code quality, right? Historically, they acquired Tidelift last year and have moved in the opposite direction, expanding into application security,
Right.
adding SAST and SCA and those capabilities. So those two patterns, I think we'll continue to see this adding. I think these maintainability, reliability features along with the security findings. I think the important thing, especially the way in which GitHub is doing it and leveraging the coding agent to do it, allows it to be in the developer workflow and also combined with autofix is probably the most interesting thing here, because code quality is historically very noisy of a tool. You can get these reports that have it. Quality is very picky, right? It can be very nitty gritty, detailed type of things. And so by integrating it into the coding agent from GitHub's perspective, they're not only presenting what they're finding, but they're helping and immediately fixing these issues before they're ever getting to any sort of testing backlog or process.
Right, the whole ship's left idea, which isn't a new one. Vendors have been putting these tools together for a while and talking about the benefits of secure by design application code. But it sounds like you're starting to see more actual collaboration on the ground between those teams. What do you think is driving that?
There's a whole lot of things. I think overall, I think what we've recognized is the way we've done application security is way too siloed, and that's driving everything. It's driven adoption of things like ASPM. It's driven where I've even seen categories and tools now like application detection and response, or tools that are bridging not only the gaps between developers and AppSec or developers in quality, but also developers in the SOC. Like, we're going full board here. And now in actual collaboration in organizations, effectively from that whole bridge, that's early days, right? But the ideas are there, and the benefits that can be derived from actually closing the infinity loop that we've used to represent DevSecOps for so many years. It's really always been an S to some degree of like, there's like a jump. The communication isn't always flowing from end to end. So I think the recognition that security done in silos does not work. That's why we've seen things like code to cloud, where we've seen you need context.
Right. But you mentioned that kind of collaboration is still developing in enterprises, let's say. And then in the market, there's collaboration between GitHub and partners, as well as a little bit of competition and friction. How have you seen their competitive and partnering strategy evolve?
Yeah, they've really done a pretty good job of finding strategic partnerships that I think deliver value and fill gaps, right? Because advanced security doesn't cover everything in AppSec, right? They don't have DAST. There are other aspects, API testing, those kinds of things that are core application security capabilities, especially the runtime, GitHub in general, right? They end at deployment. And so that's where we've seen partnerships emerge, like JFrog, which helps bring some software supply chain security filling in there. They have pretty strong partnerships with, say, like StackHawk for DAST, but also too within the Microsoft ecosystem and what they're doing there and bringing products together. So I think they think very strategically about how can they deliver and enhance their platform. And I think Agent HQ is probably a really good example of their vision for being the platform and bringing everything to it, which is a ambitious strategy. Ultimately, in all of this stuff, there's going to be the glue between everything. And GitHub, from the developer perspective, they have a great positioning to be that glue. I think the Agent HQ thing is ambitious, but I'll be interested to see execution on. There's a lot of, to your point, coopetitive stuff going on there. It was interesting to see Claude on stage and then bringing somebody you might see as a direct competitor with Copilot there. But in both AppSec and largely in the platform, I think they're pretty smart about how they're partnering, but they'll continue to see you have to make trade-off decisions, right? Between what you partner and then ultimately what having native on the platform will bring them more value. Code quality being a good example. I'm sure historically there's probably been at least technical integrations with something like Sonar now delivering that obviously creates friction in that space. So those are things they have to navigate comfortably.
Yeah, they do have some critical mass with 180 million developers.
A little bit.
Already using it for code. So there's that. So in the meantime, we've been talking about DevSecOps and workflow integration without AI for about 10 years. So where do you see enterprises with AI governance and security as agents come onto the scene?
It's still really early days. I've seen research out there from like McKinsey. We've done at IDC our own research on just the steps of taking an AI experimentation to production. And we generally don't see a high rate of conversions still in a lot of organizations. And anytime I speak with or survey organizations, security, privacy, governance are like the absolute top concerns around actually adopting this technology. I think there's a lot of promise. The sense I get is that organizations are very eager and they understand the benefits and what could be derived from adopting more agentic models. And the industry and the tooling is moving there very fast. There is certainly some catching up to do, but most organizations, they have to start thinking about this at a high scale in the organization, whether they have an AI COE or some level of governance about their particular AI strategy. And then that waterfalls down into across the organization. Right. Actually, one observation I'll make is that I found in AI security, it's a really interesting space for the first time where I've seen these platforms and tools that are trying to secure not only the SDLC tooling, but also say the HR use of AI and the like very broad scale adoption of AI across the organization. Historically, anything related to development has been this weird black box. You don't see like GRC tools typically like doing policy management for the SDLC. You don't, these maybe higher level, either cybersecurity or governance tools that are used for employee use of stuff are totally separate from software development use of things. And AI is the one area where where I'm seeing tools come out the gate that's covering the whole thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm thinking of like ServiceNow, for example. Maybe that's a place Microsoft could come in on the GitHub side.
Yeah.
It's
I think a lot of that derives from that there is so much attention and awareness around AI coding.
yes.
And for the first time, something that is very development oriented has a lot of visibility in organizations, period.
Right.
In a way that if you asked Joe Schmo at an organization about a developer's IDE and if they're using VS Code or JetBrains, they would probably have no idea.
Yeah.
But they do have, oh yeah, we're using Copilot or we're using Claude across our organization.
Right. And then, of course, security, as you mentioned, security and governance, that's a major trust issue with that. So, and the proposal from a lot of vendors, including GitHub, is, well, use AI to secure your AI. And how does that move forward, do you think?
Yeah, I think it has to move forward together, in my opinion. Because just as much as we're using AI to help with security, attackers are using AI to enhance their attacks, right?
And your competitors are
all using AI. So I think the one thing I'll say, and I think GitHub recognizes this as well in their strategy, while they have moved more security features into the coding agent and into Copilot itself, they themselves, in my opinion, don't believe that's enough. That's why they still invest heavily in GitHub Advanced Security and needing things like CodeQL and Dependabot, and you need these checks, right? There will always have to, just if you even think about, we're like how many years into cloud now, and there's plenty of security features coming from AWS and Google and all of this, but nobody just was like, I'm just going to trust the cloud. Yeah. I'm not going to have a Wiz or a CNAP or any of those kinds of vendors in place. They still always secure the technology from the outside. So coding assistants and agents are always going to need some level of external check and balance, whether it's within the platform itself. But I am now seeing so many AI native security tools that are like coming out the gate with an agentic model, with leveraging LLMs for finding security flaws to some benefit. And so I think it's this balance. There's a balance to strike between using AI to secure AI because there's that whole dimension too of not only AI code, but like you've got models and applications. You've got other AI components that have different security requirements than, say, like a package dependency from an open source project that you might typically have.
So is there anything else you think Hub should add to advanced security or to the platform itself that might help with some of those trust issues and some of that circular reasoning as far as using AI to secure AI?
I think they are at a pivotal moment as a competitor in application security. If I've ever felt like there's a tipping point where like AppSec in general is in a bit of a disturbance. There's a disturbance in the AppSec for my Star Wars love. And I think there's a lot of opportunity for, no matter how much an AppSec vendor says, we are deeply integrated with the developer workflow. Nobody is as deeply integrated as the workflow itself, right? And everything that GitHub Advanced Security is doing is native to the platform. Their struggle, in my opinion, is they have the opposite problem of every other DevSecOps vendor, that they're all trying to figure out how to work into the developer workflow, whereas GitHub needs to figure out how to work into the AppSec workflow. AppSec people don't work on GitHub typically, right? But they are building capabilities like security campaigns, like all of these things that are the more maybe vulnerability management oriented. A more complete application security platform is necessarily going to need to be touched by the application security professional. So they need to figure out how to bring that persona more and more to the platform, or how do they elevate the information out it vice versa to
Yeah.
the tools that they're using.
That's where the agent control plane comes
Could
into play.
absolutely, definitely, and there's a lot of opportunity there. But I think in general there are adjacent spaces. GitHub could, they don't have a DAST. I wouldn't be totally. Have always thought like they have an opportunity to create a truly developer friendly DAST. There's opportunities for continued investment. They definitely are investing, in my opinion, in application security. It's not oftentimes I feel at conferences maybe that are not AppSec focused.
Right.
AppSec is the redheaded stepchild. You get maybe like one session that's about AppSec, whereas
Yeah.
GitHub, it elevated and wove security throughout even the
Sure.
keynote, right?
Yeah.
It's not just a second thought for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunity there for continued growth if they can maintain the momentum. At the same point, I will mention too, they're equally a target, right? All of the stuff with the software supply chain, NPM,
Yeah.
there's brand management that has to
Yeah.
be had there. And they have an opportunity, I think, in security research. I think they have an opportunity in continuing to secure the platform itself, in addition to providing security features.
Yes.
So there's a whole lot going on there, but there's no question that security is on their mind, I would say.
Sure. And Microsoft's too.
Yes.
So yeah, it's interesting because I'm the NB enterprise IT practitioners and buyers right now because every vendor in every space, to your point about the HR application, every single vendor is trying to not only introduce AI and AI agents, but go into adjacencies
Mhm.
with them. And it's just a really dizzying picture right now competitively. And I just wonder, do we think the combo of Microsoft and GitHub is going to be one of those major, like a nucleus almost, that Nugget will coalesce around? Or do they have some serious threats from ServiceNow or IBM or SAP? There's,
I think it's so early stage in the market. It's hard to pick and bet on winners at this
yeah,
point because I think to the point earlier, we're still figuring out, I think, what these workflows even look like
yeah,
in practice in organizations. And a lot of things are still very early stage. I do think GitHub and Microsoft, it was a strategic acquisition and that I think has done well for both companies.
yeah,
And they the looking at particularly the cloud competitors, the like Microsoft's major competitors, Google and AWS, they have such a strong developer, the strengths that they have with developers and software development, it can't really be compared. And so that I think presents them a lot of opportunities, but it's things, if anything I've observed, AI has accelerated everything.
yeah,
And so that makes the runway way shorter for organizations competitively, that like you can get out in front with something and it does not take nearly as long for your closest competitor to come up with something, and then also able to watch where you falter and
yeah,
quickly pivot around those things and offer an alternative solution. And AI, just like vibe coding we talk about in like enterprises and building things like these other organizations. I think we saw GitHub this morning, right? Talk about how fast they were able to do the secret scanning in the coding agent. They leveraged their interns and
all
using
right,
their own tools internally and
right,
achieve a project in like a month that
yeah,
historically would have taken them 3, 4 and more.
yeah.
So that to that point, the competition cycle between companies is that much closer now. So
Have you seen anything in this early kind of Wild West stage with AI that is working for enterprise organizations in terms of putting some kind of guardrails or governance around this? Any advice you've had for those organizations about how to wrangle this whole
yeah.
program?
Yeah, I think my biggest advice is use the same patterns, learn the lessons we've learned
Mm,
from other new technologies because it's not all that different. While securing AI might have some different implications, things like visibility typically matters first. That's the biggest thing I see in most organizations right now is a lack of even awareness into what AI they have, whether it's like what models are in their applications, shadow use of AI chatbots and coding assistants. So I think the first level is just getting it. I think about the parallels with API security, right? Where does API security land first? Discovery. And those platforms all discover all of your APIs because most people have no idea how many they have. And same thing with AI right now. So I think the first order of business is just having visibility into it's old and repeated, but you can't secure what you can't see. And so get that visibility, and then the next step is then figuring out, how do I put policy and things in place to be able to manage and control all of the aspects of that. And GitHub's in a good position, at least from the software development aspect of it, right?
Sure.
They're not going to track all your, again, back to HR using Chat GPT. I mean, that would be a little outside of their domain. But
Right.
in the software development world, they've got a good opportunity, and with their vision with Agent HQ, to be that visibility blue layer, understand what you have, and then they've already developed that governance. They've built preemptively the governance and the control mechanisms, right, to be able to manage that stuff even before maybe almost organizations are in that experimentation.
Right.
Okay, so it's good to see that they're leading with the control aspect of things, recognizing that that's what most people are scared of with being able to adopt this kind of technology.
Good time. Cool. Well, thank you very much for
You're
joining me
welcome.
in this adventure, as I said, and then always great to get your insights on these topics. So thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you for tuning in to IT Ops Query. To learn more about enterprise software development and platform engineering, explore our content on Informa Tech Target sites. Find us on YouTube at our channel, Eye on Tech. Subscribe to our podcast to receive the latest episodes as they drop. And if you liked what you heard today, give us a rating and review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you're listening. Thank you for joining us.